Apparently the Giants trying to play a little dirty today in the first joint practice. Give me a break.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Matt Derry with you on a Monday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today is Monday, August 5th, and a Tuesday, August 6th. Jason Ross Jr., the TV voice of the Lions on the preseason, will call all three Lions preseason games on Fox 2, is going to join us momentarily on the program. Day one in the books of joint practices in New Jersey against the Giants. We'll get into all of that. All the preseason stuff with Jason coming up momentarily here on Locked On Lions. Thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcasts. Shout out to our everydayers who are out there as well that watch and listen to the podcast. If you're watching, thank you. Please subscribe. Check us out each and every day on our Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Couple of everydayers I got to give a shout out to as well. East Side's finest, Michael Zuzka and Charlie Klinger. Thank you, Michael and Charlie. These are great young kids, and they love the Lions. So shout out to Michael, his mom, Melissa, dad, Chris, great people. And shout out Zuzka family for checking us out wherever you get your podcasts right here on Locked On Lions. The program today is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Yes, playoffs have wound down. We're really pretty much into Olympics, preseason football, and baseball. The sports aren't sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Follow us on Twitter at Derry Speaks, at Locked On Lions, and of course, the Matt Derry Facebook fan page as well. All right, so the big hubbub today, Lions go to New Jersey to practice and scrimmage with the Giants. The Giants start a bunch of fights. Now, Giant fans will go, oh, Mom and Ross St. Brown shoved our guy. What a joke this was today. I'm sorry. I know the fans were into it. I know it was hot. I know the Lions and the Giants have spent the last 2 weeks hitting each other, and they're sick of it. But like 10 fights today and skirmishes that had to be broken up. Giant players are punching Penei Sewell. How stupid can you be to try to pick a fight with Penei Sewell? Penei Sewell's the baddest man in this league. Football fights are stupid. And maybe it's, oh, Matt Derry's get off my lawn guy, is he? No, the last thing I want as a Lions fan, and I'm a fan, is Amon-Ra St. Brown walking away going like this and breaking his hand because he's trying to defend himself and punch back and smashes somebody's helmet. See, football fights are stupid. Oh, you want to kick a guy in the goodies? He's got a cup on. Oh, you want to punch a guy in the arm? He's got shoulder pads on. Oh, you want to smash a guy in the head? He's wearing a helmet. 10 fights? I mean, this went on all day today where the Lions and Giants just kept getting into skirmishes. And videos are all over Twitter, and you can find all the videos everywhere. And there was one play, Amon-Ra St. Brown caught like a 30-yard pass from Jared Goff. He got kind of wrestled away by one defender. Then the other defender comes over and knocks the ball away. Like, oh, okay. If you've been watching Hard Knocks, you know the Giants, especially led by their cheap owner, John Mara, they're not going anywhere. So they dumbed it down today and started fighting with the Lions. Levi Onwuzurike got past his defender and tipped a pass from Daniel Jones. And like Brian Daboll came out and tried to challenge Levi because he thought he got too close to his quarterback. Come on, man. I hope tomorrow there's less skirmishes and more football because today just got completely out of control. Sam Laporta not practicing. Dan Campbell told the media before practice today they wouldn't disclose what was wrong with Laporta, but it's a day-to-day thing. Brian Branch also was not out there with the full team, but just did light work. But if you notice this weekend, the Lions put out their unofficial depth chart before this first game, and Brian Branch was listed as a starting safety. And Terrion Arnold at one of the starting cornerback spots, along with Amik Robertson and Carlton Davis. So the Lions have made it pretty much official, even though that's an unofficial depth chart. Brian Branch is moving to safety. The Lions want to put the best players on the field that give them the best chance to win, regardless of if Branch played so well as a nickel corner last year. And I love that. The other thing, too, is about the depth chart. I know he hasn't practiced a lot, and I know he hasn't gotten a ton of reps. But Donovan Peoples-Jones being buried with the fourth string and behind a guy like Doris Fountain is something to keep an eye on. Because I know Brad Holmes had said, we love DPJ. They brought him in at the trade deadline last year. He's got some work to do to make this team. He does. And that's a Detroit kid, and everybody's rooting for him and played at Michigan, but kind of buried on that depth chart right now. Aleem McNeil, a couple other highlights from today's joint practices. Aleem McNeil had a big day. Goff and St. Brown. Sione Vaki, even though a run for a touchdown was nullified by a penalty, he did well today. And the first touchdown that the Lions scored in the team drills against the Giants defense, first play of the offense, Goff to Jamison Williams for an 18-yard touchdown. So JMO flexing and doing his thing today in drills against the Giants. But everybody's just going to be talking about all these fights that broke out. And you hope tomorrow is a little bit cleaner. I get it. Yeah, it's hot. You haven't practiced against other, players on other teams. Keep an eye on Terrion Arnold as well. Put in concussion protocol. He was pancaked on a play by Andrew Thomas, the big tackle, had pulled out, and Terrion did the best he could to try to take the blow. And I think his bell rung was a little bit. So let's keep an eye on that before we get to Thursday night's first preseason game. Speaking of that, Jason Ross Jr. will be on the play-by-play call on Fox 2 along with Golden Tate and Danny Rogers. He is going to join us coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. Locked On Lions is sponsored by BetterHelp. All right, looking to maybe talk to somebody, thinking about therapy when your schedule is packed with all sorts of things like kids' activities, big work projects, and more. It's easy to let your priorities kind of slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you think about starting up therapy and just talking to somebody and having that neutral conversation, I want you to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, folks, as promised, our guest today here on Locked On Lions, the TV voice of the Lions for the preseason, all three games on Fox 2, including Thursday night against the New York Football Giants at 7 o'clock. He's going to be joined by Golden Tate and Danny Rogers on the sidelines. Our buddy Jason Ross Jr., the man that I said is going to be the future TV voice of just about everything here in Detroit sports very soon. Young guy with a lot of talent joins us on the program today. Jay, great to see you.
Appreciate you, Matt, and appreciate you battling through my slew of behind-the-scenes Wi-Fi issues that the people tuning in did not see, but we got through it, and now we're here, and we're ready to go for another preseason.
Big shoes for you to fill. You were the last guest we had on was Ian Eagle last week. I know you caught some of that. Appreciated your your nice messages on that. Set
the bar very high for this episode. I can't live up to that high of a bar, but I'm going to try to. I was locked in last week.
Appreciate you, brother. Tell us about the experiences you've had over the last year. I know Big Ten Network and you've done WNBA which in Chicago. You're a busy guy.
Yeah, staying busy. I called the WNBA in Chicago, and they're on the Olympic break right now. So kind of allows me to slide right over to Michigan, where I'm from, Farmington Hills area. And I go to camp every day, studying, locked in, going to practice. The team is now in New Jersey, gearing up for our first game on Thursday. So it's officially game week. And yeah, Big Ten Network, we got college football coming up here in a few weeks after the Lions preseason. I'll be on Michigan State's season opener against Florida Atlantic. A lot of college hoops, college basketball, college hockey. Did some gymnastics over the past year, really stretching the horizons, Matt. So it's been a lot of fun, and it feels like a heck of a year that has culminated on the Lions football side of things, with now leading up to what should be a really fun preseason.
And you're going to get to work with Golden Tate, who, does not pull any punches. He's going to be opinionated, and man, he was such a great interview. And when he was a player here, how much fun is that going to be?
It's going to be a blast. It's going to be so fun. We're going to have our golden moments, Matt. And he is
Nice.
excited. He's ready to go. He's approaching this like he's a rookie on the football field again. He's a student. He's so excited. He did the NFL media training camp that a lot of the players do toward the tail end of their careers.
Yeah.
And this will really be his kind of NFL debut as a broadcaster. And I think he's got a great, bright future in it. We're texting every day, going over storylines. We get to New Jersey in a couple of days. As I mentioned, team is already practicing, but he's going to be great. And I think fans are going to love seeing him back in the Honolulu Blue. I was walking around at Lions training camp last week, and from behind saw a number 15 Tate jersey, and he just got me so fired up because I'm like, the fans still, they resonate with him so much. A few years, of course, removed now from his tenure here, but I think one of the more underrated guys, especially as a wide receiver that we've seen wear the Lions uniform. And I think even Michigan State and Michigan fans can remember him crushing the Wolverines and Spartans as a Notre Dame player back in the day. So I think this state has known him for a while, and now it'd be cool to have him in the broadcast booth for sure.
Tell me what training camp has been like for you to kind of walk around. Do you sense a different feel than when you were there last year?
I do. I would say, the for the player mindset, it's a priority of not changing the work ethic that went into being a quarter short of a Super Bowl last year. But it naturally, this franchise, NFC Championship, this group had not been coming off of that before. Now we're coming off of making an NFC Championship, coming off of winning a division title. It blew my mind when I was reading a stat earlier prepping that Dan Campbell is the first Lions coach since 1957 to win multiple playoff games. I mean, that's 67 years ago. So this is really unprecedented territory for a lot of fans. But you do have the fans also that have had this journey of maybe they were there in 1957. They remember that. And they went on the 67-year journey to get back here. But it's a mindset from Dan Campbell of you can't do anything without the work. And you're seeing that. Guys are staying hours after practice, putting in extra reps, getting reps in on the jug machine for the receivers, kind of little details. And the practices have been intense, and they get really intense today, which is why we got the fight night in the rundown in the top right-hand corner here with the Giants. So I think, it's been really drama-free as well because you have your core guys back, re-signed. You hear about some of the drama with other teams. It's not like that at training camp with the Lions. It really is, to be sound cliche here, it's a dream because you have, Jared Goff back, re-signed, Amon-Ra St. Brown, re-signed, you have Penei Sewell, re-signed, Taylor Decker most recently, just to name a few. Dan Campbell knows what it's like to have been in those positions as a player where you're going into an offseason or maybe you're looking for a contract, whatever it is, and they took care of that kind of stuff, and now it's all ball. It's all, our goal is Super Bowl or nothing less, and it's going to be really, really fun to have a preseason broadcast where, there's nothing but positives really to talk about here. It's amazing. And there's that sting, though, from the San Francisco game, too. You feel that. There's a little bit of a sting, and it's driving the guys. So it's really cool to see.
Jason Ross, the voice of the Lions on the TV side for the preseason. They're going to have all three games on Fox 2, which should be very exciting, including, of course, that finale against the Steelers here a few weeks away at Ford Field. Are there a couple of players that have caught your attention at training camp that you say, man, this is a guy that could make the team, or this is a guy that's gotten so much better? Who stood out in your mind as you stand on the sidelines?
Yeah, I think one position group I'm really excited to talk about is the cornerback room. It's really retooled. For the most part on this team, there aren't a lot of spots to fill. But cornerback right now, I would say if you were to roll out week 1 against LA, Sunday Night Football, I'm going probably Carlton Davis, who's coming over from Tampa Bay, who had 74 starts there. And then our rookie, Terrion Arnold, our top first-round draft pick. He has been really impressive coming from Alabama. You got this Alabama pipeline the last few years with him. Brian Branch was really the steal of the draft last year out of Alabama. You think of Jameson Williams. I think he's a guy who's been really exciting to watch because for me, especially with Golden on the broadcast this year, we want to really dive into what's the next step for Jameson Williams. He was electric in that NFC title game against San Francisco. Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of sets the standard with that receiver group every day on the jug machine, 202 catches after practice. So all the guys are kind of following that. In terms of other guys that have stood out, maybe one guy kind of under the radar here. The Lions have a ton of depth at corner right now. It's retooled.
Yeah.
But behind Terrion Arnold, the other cornerback they chose is Ennis Rakestraw, who was the 61st pick out of Missouri. And he had 3 interceptions in practice last week. So that really jumped out to me, just how everyone is really living up to that standard. Even the rookies who are just stepping in now. There are some guys who I'll be looking for in these games. As you know, Matt, most of the starters probably won't play, but you have some depth guys who are trying to fill important roles. You're kind of looking for some depth behind Jamison Williams, behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, behind Khalif Raymond, who can step up in kind of that number 3, number 4 wide receiver spot. Donovan Peoples-Jones is there. Look out for a guy who was on the practice squad, Darius Fountain, who was going to wear number 12 in these preseason games. Big, strong hands. A couple of undrafted guys, Jalen Calhoun and Isaiah Williams, will be vying for a roster spot as well. But yeah, there's several players who are really stepping up and have been impressive. I think on the defensive side of the ball, Levi Onwuzurike has been a really emerging story at the defensive tackle spot. And Matt, I don't think anyone's going to be able to run against this Lions team this year. They were number 2 rushing defense last year. Then you add in DJ Reader from Cincinnati, who I think is one of the most underrated guys in the league. He's been phenomenal with the Bengals. He comes over and he's not quite healthy yet. We're not sure if he's going to go for week 1. If he does, awesome. But Levi Onwuzurike could be a starter week 1, and he's had a really good camp if he does have to play that role week 1.
How about Levi today? Apparently angered Giants coach Brian Daboll. Daboll thought he got too close to Daniel Jones after tipping a pass. I know you're not supposed to touch a quarterback, but the fact that Levi was not just going up against his own teammates, but beat one of the Giants' interior linemen, I'm all for it. We've been waiting 4 years for this guy, and he's, I've called him training camp Warren Sapp because that's seemingly what he's been.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, and I'm all for it too. Hey, I mean, I understand it from the Giants' perspective. Of course, you want to avoid any sort of touching to the quarterback there. That was, one of a few different skirmishes that broke out at practice today. You had 3 different fights going on. It shows the intensity level and the fact of how important these joint practices are. And for Levi, battling through back issues when you're in a defensive stance for a living is not a fun thing to go through. So it's really cool to see him healthy. And Dan Campbell said that he's earned more playing time. And he's a guy who could, again, be a starter week 1. So to see just how much of a force he's been on the interior, offensive coordinator Ben Johnson said we've had more runs stuffed going up against our own D-line than maybe we have the last few years. And Levi's certainly been a part of that. Aleem McNeil's been a part of that. Aleem is pretty amped up too. He's a guy who's, going into a contract year, possibly playing for money. So I don't think that's his primary motivation. His primary motivation is Super Bowl. But as a player, you certainly know that's on the other side of it as well, contract-wise. So the interior of this team is looking pretty scary. I think it says something because when DJ Reader does get back, like having that, Broderick Martin is another guy who's younger and emerging, big guy. And I think that the interior can only more so free up the edge rushers, such as an Aiden Hutchinson, who's coming off an outstanding year. Or on the other side, we just signed Marcus Davenport, who's coming over, and he was with Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn in New Orleans. So they know him well, and he's a guy who's produced in the past. He's also kind of emerged after having a down year last season. So I think he's going to be another guy to keep an eye on.
Let's talk to Jason more about what took place today in New Jersey. He's not there yet, but all the fights that went on and the question that everybody wants to know, who's going to be the kicker? We will do that. It might end up being Jason. I don't know. We'll find out coming up next right here on Locked On Lions. But first, Locked On Lions brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. We all love sports. We've been talking about it. Other than the Olympics and Major League Baseball, there's not a ton going on right now. But with everything that's wounded down, we still got fewer games, yes. But FanDuel is going to keep the sports going whenever we want. All we got to do is open up the app and dream up any bets anytime we're in the mood. We got preseason football coming up this weekend and later on this week. Obviously, Major League Baseball and everything else. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com right now. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. The TV voice, the great tones of Jason Ross Jr. Find a better voice in this town. I don't think you can. I mean, there's some great legendary voices in this town, including Mark Champion and others that have the great set of pipes. But we love Jason Ross Jr., the man that will be on the call for the preseason game on Thursday night, Lions and the Giants from New Jersey. Jason, we talked about it before a little bit and the issues that took place with the kicking situation. What are your thoughts? Jason, what are your thoughts on the kicking situation and the Jake Bates stuff right now? And do you anticipate another guy coming in soon?
It'll be interesting to keep an eye on. I think if we can get a few field goal attempts in this first preseason game on Thursday and see how those go, I think Jake Bates has a really strong leg. He's shown that. He's hit from over 60 in games in the UFL at Ford Field with the Michigan Panthers. He's a great story. I think it'll be interesting because you've had ups and downs at times, but naturally, they did bring in a few tryout guys and nobody was signed. But I think it'll depend on how these preseason games go and how the joint practices go with the Giants to see if someone else is brought in. But I'm rooting for him. I think it's a great story, and it's really cool to see his journey. So that'll be an interesting topic at hand, especially with how the Lions kind of utilize and don't utilize the kicker at times.
You just said it. I mean, there is that feel that maybe this is not a top or a very high priority for this organization. Yeah. When this is your biggest issue, the kicking thing, the kicking situation, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
But still, you want to get it rectified.
Very true. Very true. I would say, it's how we approach things offensively. Oftentimes I'm watching film on last season, and more often than not, when we have a 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8, you're kind of getting to that point where you're actually running the ball more so than passing because you're trying to set up possibly that 4th and 2 or 4th and 1, which I think will be the trend again this year. And Matt, I think it's exciting. I think it's a fun thing to have as a fan when your coaching staff has that aggressive mindset of wanting to win football games. And, depending on situations, of course, you can live with it or you can die with it. But if you're going to approach it a certain way, I think you live with it. And the Lions have been successful with it more often than not. But, we'll see how this kicking situation goes down.
Before you came on, I said this in the open. I mean, the fights that took place today were numerous. And to me, and maybe I'm an old guy and I get off my lawn guy at age 51, but football fights are the dumbest thing ever. Like, you can only get to break your hand. You're punching people with helmets and pads on. Jason, the last thing I want the Lions to do is kind of stoop to the Giants level. Like, we got to walk away. Have you been to some camps and when I know you do the college games and the coaches are like, there's gonna be no fighting at all. Like, what did you think of that?
Yeah, it's kind of like we're both hockey fans when guys get hurt in hockey fights. Now, hockey fights different, but training camp fights, they take it to another level with a helmet, trying to punch a helmet. It's never really going to work out.
No.
So, I hate to see receivers in the mix as well. That's what scares me, maybe even more so than anything. So, fortunately, no injuries emerged out of these fights. But you love the intensity. I think no matter who you're playing, no matter what the situation is, no matter if you're in a practice field or game field, like it's showing this Lions team is here to play, and they aren't going to take anything from anyone, which is really good to see.
You're going to be in New Jersey, obviously doing the game. What are your thoughts on the Giants? What have you learned so far about them and their approach? I'm sure you've had to peep into Hard Knocks a little bit, but what are your thoughts on the opposition for Thursday?
I think if they both guys play, one position battle I'm actually really interested to watch is their top draft pick, Malik Neighbors, who Dan Campbell was actually asked about today and was like, yeah, we looked at him in the draft, but we're like, there's no way he's falling to where we're selecting. And of course did not. But you're more than satisfied with your top draft pick in Terrion Arnold. And to bring up Terrion, those two are probably going to match up in these joint practices. And hopefully we get them matching up on Thursday night on the actual field in the big show in the preseason game. So I think that is a matchup that I'm looking at. On the Giants side of things, you're replacing Saquon Barkley, and that was your primary source of offense last year. So that's not going to be easy to do. And they bring in Devin Singletary at running back. The defensive line for them also, I'm going to point out in training camp battles this week, going to be important for our O-line matching up against them. Penei Sewell, I saw today, was getting some reps against Kayvon Thibodeau, really good edge rusher. On the opposite side, they add in Brian Burns, who was their prized offseason pickup at the defensive end spot on the opposite side of that line. So you got, our offensive line also going up against Dexter Lawrence. Like, this is a really good test for us, having what we hope is the best offensive line in football against a pretty solid defensive line. It definitely took a big jump this year, adding Brian Burns. So I think those are actually really important, not maybe in the actual preseason game, but in these joint practices. You got some really neat matchups between our O-line and their defensive line. And then, I'm just thinking forward to week 1, Matt. Like, the Rams have some really good receivers in Tutu Atwell, and Puka Nacua had a really good game against us in that playoff game. So the cornerbacks are going to be tested right away. And while the Giants may not be quite on their level receiver-wise, I think watching the cornerbacks and this secondary lock in this week is going to be really important to get ready for these next steps heading into the regular season.
Jason, it was great to see you. Thanks so much for doing this. And man, we're going to all be watching on Thursday night. I mean, I'm normally don't do a post-game pod after an exhibition game, but everybody is so into this whole thing that Thursday night will be on, and I'll be watching the entire night and checking you out along with Golden Tate and Danny and the whole crew. So have a great call and safe travels up to New Jersey, my man.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate you battling through my Wi-Fi issues. The not so subtle change of rooms to the people watching was totally my fault. This is always great catching up with you, Matt. Hey, if you want to do a post-game wrap-up on Thursday, let me know. We'll do it. We'll
have to call your cell. You're going to be exhausted. Are you kidding me? Those are long nights. You know that.
Well, my Wi-Fi won't work. That'll be the primary issue.
All right, brother. Have a great call Thursday night.
All right. See you, Matt.
There it is. Jason Ross Jr. with us on this Monday edition of Locked On Lions. Full week of shows right here. Thanks for making us your first listen. Checking us out again wherever you get your podcasts.